when Sanjay reached out to me about him and said, hey, I know this guy. We found out we both knew him. He said, can we get him to All Out with his son? And I didn't go to All Outs, but I knew when watching him on the pre-show, okay, he's a wrestler. He's going to want to wrestle.
Yeah.
Then I pitched it to him. And
his promos were like,
right.
Like, oh,
yeah, he's a wrestler.
He's good. It's in his blood. He's been doing this.
Yeah.
We know now. Yeah.
And I asked him, hey, is this something that we could do? And he straight up said no. And I was like, what?
And we are back for another casual conversation with the Classic, and I'm here with none other than QT Marshall. How are we doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm waking up, making sure I'm alive, a little early on this side of town. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm already full workout in. I've done all my stuff. I mean, we're way ahead of you guys.
You are. Quick question. I ask everybody this. It's a little cliche, but being the wrestling classic, I feel like the people like to know. Just really quickly, what were your earliest memories of professional wrestling? Like as a kid that first saw wrestling, what were the first things you remember seeing?
The Macho Man Randy Savage, "We don't go on strike" baseball commercial. I was a huge baseball fan. I mean, I went to some wrestling events when I was younger than that, but that's like the first vivid memory I have. And Razor Ramon winning the Intercontinental title, and I believe my first ever WWF magazine was Razor Ramon on the cover. So that probably would have been December of '93, which is wild that I hope I'm right with that date, but that was the first magazine I ever got, and my subscription lasted until the magazine ended.
That's crazy. Yeah, I was actually just at a friend's and I was seeing all the old magazines, and I have mine somewhere too, but I'm like, holy, I haven't seen some of these in so long.
Oh yeah, I don't have any of mine.
I don't. They're in a box somewhere. Mine are just in a box somewhere, so I haven't opened them. We've moved so many times, and I've moved that I know there's somewhere at my parents' house in a box. But he had them out because he sells toys, and he just bought a collection. He bought a collection off someone, and I was in his garage. I'm like, wow, this is like a little bit of a throwback.
And that's all the stuff that I've had over the years that I don't have anymore. I mean, I literally lost my shield that I was carrying at WrestleMania 27 as one of Triple H's like 300 guys that came out. They made us take it home, and I don't even have that, which is
insane. Was that the only major time you worked as like an extra doing something at a WrestleMania?
No. I mean, WrestleMania the next month, actually, I was with Cody as one of his bag guys for the when he had the disfigured face, which is funny because obviously the history that we have now. But I mean, I think when I was 21, I was on the opening segment of SmackDown with MVP. We had to give him a United Nation ring from JBL, which is funny because him and I joked about it the other day, at TV, because now we work for the same company. So pretty cool. You just never know who you're going to cross paths with. So it's always good to just, be good to everybody,
Yeah. It's always interesting when you go back and you see the pictures of then people are like, oh, I know that guy. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Especially recently, it was 11 years ago, maybe Adam Rose's debut, and I'm wearing a clown wig and I'm out there as a rosebud, and people are like, oh, that's QT. I'm like, oh yeah, well, not one of my brightest points, but they got to get the job done.
Yeah, no, for sure. And obviously, it's so much. You appreciate the journey after you go through and you look back at it because you're like, oh, that was part of it. So let me ask you this: what kept you going during your time on the independents before AEW started? What kept you in the game?
I always had a good job on the side, so I was never really stressing. Which it's a double-edged sword. I always said, the reason it took me so long to make it is because I probably didn't have to. You know what I mean? Because I was always okay. But then once I put all my eggs in the wrestling basket, I moved to Georgia, opened up a school, all this stuff, and started helping other people. One thing kind of led me to the next. And, but really what kept me going was just the idea that it was fun. It was something I've always loved. And at the end of the day too, I remember when, my parents telling me I should quit and do all it's like, my life's still going to be the exact same thing, except if I'm not wrestling on Friday or Saturday, I'm going to be playing softball. You know what I mean? It's not that big of a deal. And I also didn't put too much pressure on myself. But like I said, at the same time, probably a double-edged sword, because if I would have put that kind of pressure, maybe it would have happened a little sooner. But everything happens for a reason. I don't regret a thing.
No, you can't change anything either. But there is something to the idea of oh, maybe if it was what you were, the only thing you were doing, there would have been a level of desperation there where you probably would, and I always say that's a tough thing, especially in independent wrestling, because you really got to bet on yourself. But then at some point, you might have to grow up and be a little responsible.
Right. And also, I mean, when I was, on the independents before 2013, 14, I mean, there really wasn't any, decent money. So it wasn't like you were making a break. The guys that were really succeeding and living off their independent money were usually guys from like Ring of Honor or, TNA and stuff like that. I mean, it was very hard. It's not like today with streaming services and, merch games and stuff like that. So,
and building your name on social media and being able to put yourself out there like that, like people are able to today to get noticed. It's a different game. But let me ask you this really quickly then, because I'm very curious, because you brought him up early on as your earliest memories. You've had the opportunity in a few situations now to pay tribute to the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Sure, yeah.
Is that something like that you've always wanted to do? Do you enjoy doing that? Like, what does that mean to you?
Man, he's just like, he was the coolest. You know what I mean? Like, and I guess I really appreciated him more, after he passed away and stuff, and really get him to learn more about him in the documentaries and stuff like that. But I mean, he's just larger than life, and and getting to wrestle Jay Lethal at Final Battle, and my idea of like, let's do Black Machismo versus whatever I was, and Tony saying okay, and I thought we could get an action figure out of it maybe too, but also just like the idea of not full on just like cosplaying and mocking, or what I mean, like it's just having that. I got to have my wife out there. She was my Miss Elizabeth. It was just a lot of fun. And again, I'm at a point now where, not to say I don't take it seriously, because I do when I'm in the ring. I mean, that's very important to me, and I like really stress that to the people that are under me. But at the same time, it's like you got to have some fun. And at the end of the day, like, let's have some fun. We're in a good position, and we can go out there and have fun. And then I also thought, going into that match, especially, like if the first part of the match looked kind of QT-ish and corny, and then once we put the back end together, it was like, oh man, these guys are really having. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, getting to dress up, having the music, and Neil Pruitt, who was the original voice for the NWO, he did the intro for the song, and it was really cool. It's funny, that song was something that I had made by Mikey Ruckus, but in 2019 on the Indies, for a little invasion angle that we were running on our local independent show. So it was just cool that we had it in the bank already. It all worked out.
No, that's awesome. This might release later, but as we're recording, it's May 20th. It's actually the anniversary of when the Macho Man passed away in 2011.
Oh man,
I
remember where I was that day. Everything,
No, same here. He's my all-time favorite. Like, he's one of those guys. When I was a kid, he captured my imagination too.
Yeah.
So, do you have like a favorite Macho Man match of your own, really quickly? Or moment?
So everyone's going to say WrestleMania 3, right? But of course, to me, I like the Macho Man as a babyface. Yeah. So, and I was at, WrestleMania 10. So obviously that wasn't one that everyone, goes back to. But obviously the one with Ric Flair, WrestleMania 8, was one of like my personal favorites. And of course, even though he was a heel at the time, WrestleMania 7 with Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah. The Warrior one's the one that stands out to me the most, just because two larger-than-life characters, and as a kid, you don't hear all the internet stuff. Like, I didn't know Warrior was a bad worker or any of this.
Of course. So, and you know what I mean? Like, it's okay, and then we, everyone can argue those points. It's like, at the end of the day, it depends on. It's all subjective, right? Like, what is your idea? What's my idea of working? Like, he had the crowd going crazy. These people are paying their money. I kind of like what he did,
Yeah, the whole story is great.
Yeah, 100%. And then, of course, Miss Elizabeth at the end with the reuniting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the whole story. He turned. Yeah, it was a great match. I always look at that one. I'm like, that's so underappreciated. But it's like, as a story, like even like them playing so hard into the characters, like the fact that Savage kept going for elbows when he probably could have won.
Right.
But it only makes sense because he's the Macho Man. Like,
of course, yeah. Everything he did was to the extreme,
Yeah. Let me ask you this: you got a documentary made of yourself back in like 2017. The wrestler QT Marshall. Tell me about that experience and how'd you feel about that?
Okay, so no one's gonna believe it, but I just knew the director. I knew his older brother. We knew each other. We went to the gym together. He just said, "Hey, my brother just graduated from Full Sail. He wants to do a documentary. He hasn't done one yet. He wants to be, document himself wrestling." And then he came to the Monster Factory where I was at the time, and he watched a match that I did with Damian Priest and was like, "I don't want to do this, let me just document you." I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. Just obviously, like, don't intrude on my life too much because no one's making money on this. No one's, I literally didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, and unfortunately, the timing and having a WWE tryout and then them taking away from me due to age and this, that, and the other. And, he, of course, because this was his dream to be a director, he really pushed it. He made sure it was out there, film festivals, like I said, San Diego Comic-Con, all these things. And I just figured out whatever it is going to be what it is. But it actually was like the greatest thing that ever happened that he, put this thing together and got it out there. And then Cody ended up seeing it. We screened it in Atlanta. I invited Cody because I was training Brandy, and my wife was like, you need to invite Cody. And I think Brandy forced Cody to go. So it was like a perfect storm of like, I was embarrassed because, at the end of the day, it was like a really hard time in my life. But also, like I'm not a very like I try to be very private. I just do. Mm-hmm. It's who I am. And when I'm out there, it's different. I'm just a whole different thing. But so it was a little weird for me at first. But, at the end of the day, like he's done really well. The director, Frank, he's done a Gaspari Nutrition now, something with, James, what's it, Gotti or whatever, like some kind of mob thing or whatever. Like
John Gotti?
John Gotti, there you go. Yeah, he's doing that's how much I know. Being from New Jersey, he's doing really well. And like I was glad to see him be able to do that. We always joke about part 2, but I always say like I'm living part 2. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like part 2 is from everything from that day forward, and it's been a heck of a ride. And I'm, I do really look back and think, man, I wonder what would have happened if I didn't say yes to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of those things that you probably didn't know what you're getting yourself into, and also probably like, why me? But then also it turned out to be a really great opportunity. And who knows, right? Like you never know when you say yes to something. I've learned that like sometimes just say yes and we'll see what happens. You brought up Damian Priest, and I interviewed Damian Priest, and he brought you up in that interview.
Okay, what'd he say? Anything good?
Everything good, actually. Just going back on your guys' friendship and all that, and like how he was almost at the point where he thought, okay, I'm not gonna make it. I'll just help out here at the Monster Factory. And now, so how do you feel about seeing his progression, winning the world title, and everything he's done the past few years, knowing him all the way back then when he felt that way?
I mean, it's incredible. I was fortunate enough to be there. I was there for Cody, but also it's the same night. So being able to be there and get to see that, I mean, it was like 2 of my best friends, you know what I mean? Winning the world titles in the respective company that they're in. It was really cool. And, the hard work that he put in, but also still being so down to earth. And I mean, we talk every day. We're trying to figure out now how to get to the same Yankee game. And, so we have a lot in common outside of wrestling as well. And it's just, like I said, it's great to see, I'm super happy for him. Obviously he knows that I would do anything for him if he ever needed it. And I think vice versa. But also we don't really go into the business part of it too much anymore. Like I see what he's doing. He sees what I'm doing. We joke about it, but like, even, when my contract was up, we didn't really communicate about stuff like that because at the end of the day, like, we're both adults and it's just one of those things, you know what I mean? Like, but we just try to keep our friendship outside of wrestling. It just so happened that we both, started together. Like, I think I started a year after him in, 2004. So it's just really cool. When I went back to New Jersey in 2012 for Ring of Honor, we started to get a lot closer, and I was just kind of, hey buddy, like this is real. Like you can, and then once he put it all into motion, the rest was history for him. I mean, like 6'5", that voice, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's kind of hard to deny that, so I'm super happy for him.
Yeah, this is actually kind of cool because now I realize I talked to Damian Priest, and then I talked to Preston Vance, and he brought you up and brought up the Damian Priest thing, and now I have you on it. It's like I got all 3 of you and I connected the stories. You can probably make something cooler. How pivotal is that though, right? Because you hear about that all the time, right? Like making friends in wrestling, you only make so many real friends, and or you see people, you don't see them if you're at different companies, and you reunite when you return at the same company or something.
Sure.
How pivotal is it to like not talk about wrestling all the time, to keep a friend in wrestling and like step away from wrestling a bit?
Especially, and like, at the same time, you're not all going to be at the on the up at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Right. So like the last thing I want to do is bring up something to Preston Vance. If something's going really well for me, it might not be going well for him, or vice versa. Same with Damian. Like, I'm sure he's not going to want to rub in my face that he's world champion. You know what I mean? Like, things are going really well for him if I'm not on TV. So I think that's, there's always going to be that kind of competitiveness between friends, especially. But like, I think the best thing to do is just wish each other the best of luck and just continue to be there to support them. And if they ever need anything, you know what I mean? Just help them out as much as possible. I've really learned that more than anything. I used to, like a lot of younger talent, you're so worried about yourself. And you have to be. You have to be 100%. But the more you start to help other people, I always say this too, like relationships, more important than money. By far. They're so much more important. Having a great relationship because, and I learned this from Glacier, Ray Lloyd, who I'm glad to become friends with him because this whole thing would have never happened with the school and all that stuff. But, he always said, like, it's not who you know, but it's who's willing to say that they know you.
Yeah.
Right? So I could say I know people all day long, but if they're not willing to say that they know me, so like I said, I think having those relationships, but also at the end of the day too, it's hard to figure out who is your actual friend and who just wants something. So I always ask everybody, like, the moment they hit me up, hey, how's it going? Like, it's going. What do you need? You know what I mean? Like, and if I can help you, great. If I can, I'll tell you. But at the end of the day, like, don't sugarcoat it. If I haven't talked to you in 10 years, you know what I mean? Like, it's okay. I understand you want to live the dream. Like, I appreciate you reaching out. You should be reaching out,
Yeah. And it's more, I have more respect when someone reaches out and they're just straightforward about they're looking for something. Like, hey, can you help me with this? And and I'm like, oh, cool. And actually, it's better for the relationship. It makes me trust you more, right?
Like the whole thing I always say the whole thing in the arena. That's where we get to have fun and kind of stretch the truth a little bit. Like, back here, let's just tell the truth. This is what I want. This is what you want.
It's like I have a funny story about that too. That's for a different time, but about someone hitting me up. And then I'm being like, right away, I was like, what do you need? And he's like, what do you mean what I need? I can do this. I can do. I'm like, okay, cool. And then like 10 minutes later, he's like, but like, if you mind sharing this, I'm like, oh, so okay. Like,
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, I got it. Hey, yo, it's your boy, the Wrestling Classic, Justin, with a very special announcement. I gotta let you guys know about the premier wrestling convention in Los Angeles, LAX Fan Fest. Check them out. Bret the Hitman Hart, Dustin Rhodes, Rikishi, Conan, Godfather, Mina Shirakawa, Victoria, so many great names. LAX Fan Fest, June 28, 2025, 5711 Century Boulevard at the Hilton by LAX. Come on through. It's the premier wrestling convention in Los Angeles. If you haven't been to one, you'll absolutely enjoy it. We'll be doing a giveaway for all of you big Bret Hart fans, so keep your eye out for that giveaway. Follow LAX Fan Fest on social media. Follow the Wrestling Classic. Check out fanfestlax.com. Get your tickets. Google it. Figure it out. Be there. June 28th, LAX Fan Fest. Bret Hart, Dustin Rhodes, Rikishi, X-Pac, Conan, then the list goes on. If you're an old school wrestling fan, if you're a new school wrestling fan, you're going to have a blast. LAX Fan Fest. Come through. Make sure you're there. Keep doing it. But let me ask you this, because that's a really good way to transition, though. Like, because you're right, when you're younger and you're breaking into professional wrestling, and I see it a lot with a lot of people that I saw breaking and still till this day, like, hungry, want to be the top, so focused, so driven. But at what point for you were you like, okay, like, obviously you still want that, but you found like the happiness in being able to help others, like being part of the school, wanting to train others? Like, when did that moment change for you? Like, okay, like maybe this isn't going the way I planned, but maybe it can help other people and be part of their stories and their journeys and help them get to where they want to go.
Right. So obviously it's not one-sided. I figured there would something would be in it for me. Right. And I always thought, okay, I can be the best coach. And I didn't know if I was going to wrestle anymore. So I figured I'll be the best coach. And then WWE would have no choice but to hire me as a coach because I'm doing really well. And that's why I never named the school after myself. It always had a brand name and so on and so forth. But I realized, okay, if I do that and I help other people, they're going to tell people, and that's how my business will grow and I will become successful because I can tell everyone all day how great I think I am and so on. But of course, I'm going to put myself over. It's my business, right?
Yeah.
So that was like my whole mindset going in. And then I realized, just like I said, little by little, like good things were happening for all these guys and girls. I was like, man, okay, we could do this. We could do this. And I also feel like I have a really good, a good knack for coaching people and learning how they learn and helping them understand a lot more and stuff like that. So it was just one of those things where I was like, you know what, I'm going to put everything into here and hopefully something good comes out of it. Fortunately, AEW started and I started at the ground level of AEW, but when I say the ground level, I started at the absolute minimum wage as Cody's assistant. You know what I mean? So, and it was like, I could have said no because I needed to, like the day he asked me to come to Jacksonville for the rally, I remember it was the first day of our beginner class. I think I had like 10 people signed up at $1,500. That was 15 grand. And I remember saying, like, I can't miss this. It's day one. And my wife was like, you got to go. Just go.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, they will understand. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to be so excited about AEW, blah, blah, blah. I didn't think that way. I just thought it was day one and the coach isn't there. You know what I mean? So it was
yeah. It's a bad look, but then,
it's a bad look, but I think it paid off in the end. But yeah, I think, like I said, it's just the more I try to help people, the more it seems like it's coming back. I don't believe in that kind of karma and all this other stuff, but whatever's happening, it seems to be going okay.
Yeah. What is one piece of advice you give every trainee? Like, I know that's a very cliche, like, what type of advice would you give? Like, one piece that you always give people. Like, if you could boil it down to one.
Okay, so I'll say what Cody always says.
Yeah.
Cody always tells everybody to treat everybody like your favorite wrestler ever.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you'll do all right in this industry. I agree to that as well. I mean, I've seen it. But I guess what I always tell everybody is, figure out what you want to do and go do it. Right. And don't be afraid to ask for what you want. That's it. Again, like, I'm a salesman. We're all salesmen.
Yeah.
So don't sell me something. Just tell me what you want and we can work it out. And it's opened me up to a lot of text messages of like, hey, I'm going to shoot my shot. And it's like, go ahead, do your thing, man. It's probably not going to happen, but hey, we can at least figure out a way to get you there. But like I said, too, it's just be honest. And it all goes back to that. I guess if you wrap it all up in a bow, it's be honest outside of the ring. Single thing.
Yeah. How much does it matter to have thick skin though? Because I can say from my experience too, like, you have to be okay with being left unseen or not getting a response or getting rejected. Like, it's okay. Like, I've had younger wrestlers even to me being like, oh, like, they hate me. I'm like, I don't think they hate you. They either probably don't know how to respond. They're either busy or like, it's just not the time. But you should be happy that you shot your shot. It's just not the time right now. They don't see it yet, right? Like,
right. So I mean, okay, it's two-sided again.
Yeah.
I answer everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And my wife is probably, very upset about it because I'm always on the phone. I answer everybody. I've answered 4 messages since we started this conversation. You know what I mean? Like, I just answer everybody. I do it because it has to get done. And it also is what has helped me get to the level that I'm at backstage by trying to get the answer for everybody, because there's a lot of unknowns. And the worst thing as a talent is the unknown. Is sitting home, not wondering, and wondering what's going on. You don't have a clue, all these things. Sometimes it's okay to just, to give that answer. Also, like, I'll tell the promoters, because I am a promoter as well, like, it's okay to reach back out and say, hey, right now isn't the time. That goes so much further than leaving somebody unread. There's nothing worse than knowing in this day and age that everybody is on their phone and you're not going to respond. You know what I mean? So I tell everybody, hey, if you message me and I don't get back to you, that doesn't mean I'm not going to respond. Please highlight it, send it again. Also, just put a thumbs up on it, or, hey, sending this to the top, because ideally, if I put my phone down, there's a chance I might have 40, 50 messages, or if I'm on an airplane or something, and I do have to answer them. Unfortunately, this sounds terrible, but I have to answer them in the importance of the people and the things that need to get done. So my students might fall last at that point, if I'm answering everyone from AEW. So I just say, like, hey, don't take it personally. You're not bothering me as much as you think you are. I was in those shoes. I understand. But also, the squeaky tire is the one that gets the oil.
Yeah. No, for sure. And that's the truth too, because there's been times where too, like, I just get curious what the person said. So I'll open it. I'm like, I'll respond to this after. And then it's like, sometimes you forget. So you need that follow-up with them to be like, hey, man, I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, my bad. I meant to respond to this.
It happens all the time.
Yeah. And you said it yourself right now, so I already know the answer, but like, part of it has to be that you were in their shoes at one point.
Right.
You know what it's like.
Yeah. And that goes the furthest, I think, when it comes to dealing with talent, dealing with egos or lack of egos and, insecurities. And it's like, dude, I've been there. I've been touted as one of the next guys. And then I've been the guy that's going to lose in a minute. Like, I've done it all. I've seen it all. And I'm okay with it. At the end of the day, like, it is what it is. You get what you put into it. And the times that I felt that I was getting the the push, I guess, right? Like when I was younger, it was like I probably was earning it at that time. When it was taken away from me or whatever happened, it was probably my fault, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I can control as much as I can. So, like I said, yeah, you do have to have thick skin. But I think that's in any type of profession that you're going to try to achieve a dream, right? I mean, like if you look at the numbers, just pure numbers of people signed to major contracts in a major company, how many are there? 500? You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, maybe 600, say 1,000 tops. How many wrestlers are there? You know what I mean? Like it's hard, and it's challenging and it's also subjective. So like, it's not like you're actually going to hit home runs. Right.
Yeah.
If I'm the boss, I might love this person and think they're great. And then I might not be the boss. And the next week they're like on the bottom of the card.
Yeah.
So you do have to understand that, treat it like like a business. It's one of the most mind messing industries I think you can ever be in. I was explaining it to, our guys when I had to do our podcast for AEW. And I said, like, my match with AJ, Big Boom, top of the world in my, like that feeling of having a sold out crowd so invested in everything you're doing and all these things. The next day, I don't even have to bring my gear somewhere. You know what I mean? So like you're all the way up here, and then the next day you're like making breakfast. Like, okay, this is regular life, And it's like, if you can't handle that, just know that you're always going to do this, right? It's peaks and valleys. And I've learned a lot of that from guys like Billy Gunn, Cody, Glacier. Like it's just, you have to have that support system and be able to ask these questions. And unfortunately, a lot of wrestling schools nowadays, it's a lot better with Seth and Booker and Cody and stuff like that. But back in the day, it was like guys like me, when I opened my school, just guys that were good at the physical wrestling part. And they couldn't really teach you all that other stuff that you really do need to know to actually survive in the industry.
Yeah, like you have to find ways, even if it's like looking for the silver lining, to still enjoy it and love it. Because otherwise, when it's at the valley part, it's very easy to be like, I'm not going to do this anymore. This isn't for me. When it's like, no, it is. You just got to ride the wave, right? Like,
And it's like you said, as long as you know that it's coming, you know what I mean? Like, just enjoy it, and just know how special you are to be able to do it, right? Even if it's only for a short time, to be able to have those moments and maximize. And when you do have those moments, maximize them and try to get the most out of them.
I do want to talk about the Big Boom thing, but I want to talk about a couple of training things real quickly. Obviously, you train people from scratch. You train people that had some time on the independents and came in and wanted to polish their stuff. But I'm always so curious, like, how is it training people that come from like not wrestling at all, like come from the athletic world, and Anthony Ogogo, for example? How's that experience for you? When you're getting someone that's already come from the athletic world, they might have a certain perspective of what professional wrestling is, but they might not have the same love of the game as someone that's wanting to train from scratch or coming from the indies.
So, I mean, one of the good things about like specifically Anthony, he was a wrestling fan. So
it makes a difference.
But there have been people that we've trained that are not wrestling fans, and it's extremely difficult because we call it like Mark Magic. We always joke about it. Guys that have just watched wrestling for so long, they could probably like, hey, hit a stunner. They could do it. You know what I mean? But they don't understand like, hey, hammer locks, top wrist locks, stuff like that. Because they haven't seen it. And obviously WWE and AEW, we don't sell hammer locks. We sell like, the hidden blades and stuff like that. And the coffin drop. So that's the hard part, is trying to get them to understand what you're talking about. Luckily, nowadays, we're fortunate enough to just pull it up on YouTube and kind of show them. When it comes to the physical part of it, the mental part of it is obviously the hardest, the psychological part and stuff like that. But if you simplify it, I've always said, just try to simplify it as best as possible, and I learned that from somebody else, is like, hey, good guy beats up the bad guy and bad guy beats up the good guy and good guy makes a comeback. That's it. However you want to do that in those sections is up to you, but just try to keep it like that for now. And that's it. And it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You know what I mean? So obviously having independent guys, now that there's an opposite, right? Like an athlete, they're going to do all the extra stuff and they just have to learn how to wrestle and understand what wrestling is. Independent guys, unfortunately, sometimes they don't want to do the extra stuff. They just want to wrestle. So getting them to the next level is going to be a lot harder because they don't want to invest in, meal prepping and going to the gym every day, and they'd rather do their own thing. So, and everyone's going to take their own path. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just, as long as you do it the way you want to do it, I guess. But I always say, like, just try to check as many boxes as possible and hope that, if you treat it like it's school and you have a report card and you have A's in all the subjects, you know what I mean? Like, there's a better chance of you succeeding. That doesn't mean you're going to, but at least there's a better chance. And that's kind of like the best part of it. Like I said, is just talking to each person individually and finding out how they think about it and stuff like that. And then teaching them, we do it as like a factory, right? But at the same time, it's getting one-on-one with them and kind of figuring out their strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that.
No, for sure. What do you have a moment that you're really proud of one of your students? Is there like a moment that stands out to you where like this is one of the students that that you've helped either train from scratch or really helped get into wrestling, then they accomplish something and you're like, oh, that's super cool that I'm part of that.
Yeah, I mean, man, a lot of like, honestly,
I know you don't want to leave anybody else. So
no, I mean, like one of the ones that I really am proud of more than anyone, honestly, is like Anna Jay, because she was like a pageant girl. That was like Glacier was friends with her uncle, and that was it. It was like, hey, we got this girl. She probably would look great on TV, but I don't know if her heart's going to be into it. And then she's had injuries, and she's just pushed through. And you know what I mean? Like that and she's a great person, so it goes even further. But she's probably
super nice. Yeah,
super nice. Yeah, like her. And then helping people get opportunities as well, even though maybe I didn't train them. But like Harley, for instance, right? Like, she's, thank God that, we reached out to her and kind of, hey, this was an idea that we had and and she was able to do what she's been able to do. It's just, again, the more I can, we always joke about the list of people that I've reached out to get them opportunities. It's like a mile long, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, eventually maybe, one of these people are going to, and I'm like, I don't care. At the end of the day, as long as they continue to do what they're doing and do well and don't become, jerks about it, then we're good to go.
It's impressive on the Anna one too, because I think I remember early on hearing her on a podcast saying she only had I think it was like less than 10 matches before she got signed to AEW. And the fact that she's still here and she's improving all the time and that's imagine that to your confidence. You're going to a company where you got a lot of these guys that have been here for 10, 15 years and stuff rocking the indies.
Well, I always say what helped her out the most was that match that she had with Sheeta, I believe it was. We filmed that in our school in front of like nobody. And she's been wrestling at the school in front of nobody for a while. You know what I mean? So it's like, this is kind of like there's just cameras on you now, So it actually, I think it probably helped her a lot more than going in front of a sold out crowd, for the first time ever. So it was cool. Like that time period was really a terrible time for the world, but like a special time for us. And that's, our school and AEW and stuff like that.
And then Harley's another one that did talk about you quite a bit when I interviewed her. So
yeah.
Like now that you brought up, I'm like, wait a minute, we talked about you quite a bit on that one too. And that's another one where it's like
people is like so wild when you actually go back and there's other people that like work for W. They I helped this person and I just like again I like.
It's cool to know that though. It's cool to have that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I don't do it selfishly, but also it does make you feel good inside, right?
Yeah.
Like to know that you've helped somebody, even if it's as little as giving them a contact or just, hey, I can get your foot in the door. That's it. That's all I can do, but I'm willing to do it,
Yeah, my thing has always been if I can give you as much exposure as I can before you make it somewhere else, I was able to help with that,
Yeah.
So I get it, but Harley, what a hidden gem for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
They didn't know what they were getting. Hey, yo, it's your boy, the Wrestling Classic, Justin here, and I'm here to tell you guys about one of wrestling's best-kept secrets for merchandise, officially licensed WWE and NXT merchandise, 500level.com. Check them out, 500level.com. Get officially licensed merchandise for the WWE, NXT, UFC, MLB, NBA, NHL. They got it all. If you join the Partnership Point program as a loyal customer, you will get discounts down the road. You can find merchandise for some of your favorite NXT stars that you can't find anywhere else. Javon Evans, Kalani Jordan, Carmen Petrovic, Lola Vice, Trick Williams. They got merchandise for everybody on NXT. You got OG shirts like this NWO shirt. You got big stars like the Queen Charlotte Flair. You get new designs like this new design for Lita. You get designs I helped out with like this design for Dakota Kai, which I was a part of creating when Dakota didn't have those many shirts going on. You can get, like I said, NXT superstars like Carmen Petrovic and many others.
You can get OGs like the none other than the Hot Rod, Rowdy, Roddy Piper. You can get CM Punk, Jey Uso, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, anybody you want. Sami Zayn's 500level.com. Check them out. You can even get the bad guy, Razor Ramon. You get your OG, like I said, logo shirts, NWO, WWF, Survivor Series, Raw's War. 500level.com. Check them out. Join the partnership program. Some of the best quality shirts, premium quality, regular quality. Some of the best product you will find out there. Officially licensed WWE, NXT merchandise, and OG Legend stuff. 500level.com. Check them out. Keep doing the thing. We'll see you later.
Let's talk a little bit more about your stuff that you've got to do in wrestling, the storylines, the stuff you had. Sure. How about that rivalry with Cody Rhodes? Because that was the first time we got to see heel QT on the AEW screen. You turned on Cody. You guys had quite the rivalry. How just to be able, regardless what anybody else thinks about it, for you as friends, how cool was that for you two to be able to work with each other like that? Now knowing that you guys are in different places, not know if it'll ever happen again, maybe not saying it won't, but knowing that you guys have that in the catalog now.
Yeah, I mean, when the idea first came about to us, I don't think either of us were like, yeah, let's do it. But we also knew that it was an ending with Anthony Ogogo and all this other stuff. And I mean, me personally, deep down, I was like, well, I'm going to take any crumb I can get at this point. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't ever supposed to wrestle. So the idea that this idea came up, I'm in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to, whatever I could do. I never pitch anything for myself besides AJ. I never really go out of my way to like force myself on TV. It's just not, again, I would love to be on TV all the time, but that doesn't, I don't want to put myself in that position. So when this came up, I was like, man, this would be so cool. I also think it was given to me at a time that I wasn't probably ready. It is what it is. But also, we needed it. We needed stuff to happen to do all that stuff. So looking back on it, I mean, I have really fond memories of it. And getting to be a part of like the first ever Blood and Guts. We did the strap match, was the first match, the first televised match in front of a crowd in an indoor arena for, I believe, AEW and probably WWE at the time. So that was really cool to be able to check those boxes. And, I always go back and joke about how people are like, oh, Cody, they turned him heel by letting him work with QT. And it was like, I go back and watch the match in the sold out, place in Miami, and those people are going nuts for Cody. And they're booing me. So I don't really know what you're talking about, but sure, whatever your narrative is, that's okay as well. You know what I mean? But yeah, like to me, again, I always joke with him about it, and he'll always text back like, oh, did we wrestle each other? So I think, maybe he tries to not remember it too much, but we had some fun. And like I said, I learned a lot from working with him and his ideas and stuff like that. And obviously, I mean, look where he is now, right? He kind of knew what he was talking about. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the stuff you've done internationally, because obviously you had that run in Mexico at AAA. How was that for you? You were like top heel Mr. America over there. How was the time in AAA?
Yeah, another thing that, like, again, just kind of, I think having good relationships with people and being trustworthy in the ring. And Penta, had his deal with Conan, and it was kind of like, hey, this is an idea that we have and we want to do X, Y, and Z. Unfortunately, we never got to finish the rivalry due to, all the other stuff that was going on with him and his contract situation and stuff. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, I have scars on my back from the ambulance match, which I wasn't too thrilled about. But at the same time, like, I really wish at the time that would have gotten a lot more exposure. I think it would have been a career changer for myself, honestly, for people to see me positioned in that way. And that's kind of why we did it. When I spoke to Conan about it, it was like, well, what do you want out of this? What do I want out of this? I'm not in it for the money. I'd like to get paid something, but I'm in this to prove that I could be positioned in a certain way. And, for the world to see and my boss to see and everyone else. Right. So, very proud of it. I was super excited then to be able to win the title, the Latin American Championship that I believe I defended it more than anyone in the short time that I had it. I really made a point to make deals with promoters all over the country and, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And all I need from you is to be able to defend this title. And I was really trying to add to it because at the end of the day, I didn't want to lose it. And I knew I was probably not going to have it for such a long time. I wanted to show that, hey, keeping this on me will do good for you as well, right? It's a give and take. So, unfortunately, fortunately for them, they're bought out by WWE. So I don't think I'll be working there anymore. and I haven't really brought up CMLL at all or anything like that. So I'm not too concerned. It was fun at the moment, but we'll see what happens, But yeah, I'm an international superstar, whether it's
to your credit though. Yeah, to your credit though.
Yeah.
Like I was gonna say, like, I mean, I'll openly say, like, I'm not sitting there always watching AAA. That's not something I'm always tuning into, but I heard about and I knew when you were down there doing your stuff. Like I saw the ambulance match clips, like that stuff I saw. So for whatever you were doing, it was working. Maybe it didn't work to the extent that you wanted it to, but like people heard about, like what is QT Marshall doing in AAA? Like
I know, and it's I always say, like, I know we have to promote, we have to put graphics out, but it's like whenever they tag me in something, the comments are just so, and I'm like, again, going back to thick skin, right? Like, I know what I'm gonna do when I get out there. And I also know what happens when you put a graphic out of me. I know the backlash you're going to get. That's okay. If you can push through that, you know what I mean? And just understand that you're going to get a quality match. And you're going to get somebody that comes and is not selfish and is going to do whatever you ask me to do. Yeah. But at the same time, like, I put a lot of passion into what I do, and and to see that, it kills me inside. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, it's 6 people's opinion. You know what I mean? Also, at the end of the day,
it's also the new age wrestling thing with trying to understand social media, because it's like, if for someone that is like a social media guy, I'm like, well, if I'm getting comments and I'm getting a reaction at all, that's better than the person that's getting no comments and I post their graphic.
Correct.
But that's,
I always say,
it's still, I know just from personal experience, it's still a lot of like people learning social media in the business now because they've been here for a long 10, 20, 30 years prior to social media. That's like, once they realize that that's actually a good thing, that's not a bad thing, they're actually reacting on here compared to not reacting, there's something to that. Yeah.
Right. So, going back to that real quick, my biggest thing when somebody says something about, like, me, right? Oh, he's boring, he's this, he's that, whatever they say, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Nobody gets up and walks out of the arena. Yeah. That's the biggest key. When I go to a movie and it's a bad movie, I get up and leave. I don't sit there and yell at the movie. I don't scream, boo, this movie stinks, I hate this actor. No, I just get up and leave and say, oh, I wasted my money. This is a bad movie. Now, knowing that the movie, if I have a little segment of this 2-hour, 3-hour movie, when I'm done, there's going to be more that you do like. I would assume that you would get up and go do something else for that 8 to 10 minutes and then come back. It's not what happens. They sit out there and they chant, QT sucks. So I think, okay, maybe I'm doing something right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, so again, like you said, any reaction is better than no reaction.
100%. I have to ask you about this, being the good Canadian boy that I am, and talking to a lot of people that are involved with it, talking to Scott about it. How does it feel for you to be a part of Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, it coming back, the resurgence of it all, and being with it as it's beginning? Like, you were on the first episode of the comeback, you're still on it. And how do you think this is beneficial to the Canadian wrestling scene?
It's great. Being able to, again, Danny Duggan has his tour. There's so few Canadian companies that I would even know, hey, let me go check out talent from place X. This is like a prestigious company, but on top of that, when Scott brought it back, like the way it looked, it's just everything about it screams like big leagues. And then of course, Tony, being who he is, being kind enough to lend talent and so on and so forth. It's great. You know what I mean? Like, it really is. It was cool to be a part of it. Still being a part of it and helping Scott on the back end as well. Like, it's awesome, And like I said, it's one of those things, again, when I'm involved, there's something that I want to get out of it, but also, like, it's give and take. Like, I bring a lot to the table that might not be what you guys would see on the screen, but also I do want a little bit on the screen, because right now I'm running out of places to work. WWE's kind of buying up everything, you know what I mean? So if I can go there and have some fun and stuff like that, it's great for me, And I was able to wrestle Josh Alexander the other night, and but again, that was something that I had to talk to Scott about and try to will it into existence, But I knew, like, we would get a good match out of it, and we'd have fun, and we'd be safe. And also, I knew Tony would be okay with it because it's me. And, he doesn't have to worry about Josh getting hurt and someone that's in a pretty prestigious part of AEW at the moment,
Yeah, no, for sure. And to your first part, that's what I've said in the conversations I had about it, is that for the longest time, there's a lot of great independent wrestling companies. I'm not saying there isn't, but there hasn't been any with the reputation or the prestige of like, you're going to get noticed if you're working here. There's not a Beyond or a Defy or a GCW type of situation happening here. You know what I mean? So it's like, I always felt like most Canadian wrestlers would have to work in America or England or Japan to get noticed or something, where it's like, no, like if this keeps going the way it's going, this can be the place you can go in. A person like yourself that's working at AEW or someone that's working at a different company might take notice of this and be like, oh, who's this person? You know, what's this clip going around for? So it's cool.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I have to ask you then really quickly, because we went a little bit longer than I expected, but I need to know about this Big Boom AJ feud and you bringing the Doom. And like you mentioned, like, you did pitch the idea to work with AJ. And I will say it because you probably can't say it. I think it should have been on the main card because that match was more over than maybe a couple of the matches that were on the main card. But as a fan, I want to say it should have been.
Okay, so here's my thought, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, when pitching something, you want to try to check a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
You're not going to take up a lot of TV time. You're not going to ask for pay-per-view time, right? There's a lot of things that you want to. Okay, when it came to AJ, his whole social media is free. So it's like, why try to get his people to pay for that on the first one, especially, right?
Yeah.
Let's figure out how we could do this, how we can make it work, and so on and so forth. I knew AJ from 2005. We've always stayed in touch. When Sanjay reached out to me about him and said, hey, I know this guy, we found out we both knew him. He said, can we get him to All Out with his son? And I didn't go to All Outs, but I knew when watching him on the pre-show, okay, he's a wrestler. He's going to want to wrestle. Then I pitched it to him. And
his promos were like,
right. Like, oh, he's a wrestler.
He's good. It's in his blood. He's been doing this. We know now. Yeah.
And I asked him, hey, is this something that we could do? And he straight up said no. And I was like, what? I was like, wait a minute, this is not how you're supposed to respond. I said, well, we could do a tag match. I can be on your side, or we could pair you with somebody because I'm normally the bad guy and so on and so forth. We'll figure it out, Then I guess he spoke to his family and stuff. And I told him, like, this will be really good, man. It's New Jersey. It's your hometown. It's my hometown. Yeah. We'll make it feel like huge, We'll do it at Barstool. We could do all these, all these things. We'll build it up, and then pitching it to Tony. Obviously, it helped that we weren't going to take up the TV time to the point where we wanted to do the weigh-in at Barstool or Sirius, And then Tony was like, why don't we just do it on Rampage? And I was like, oh, I mean, if you're willing to do, of course, I'd much rather do it on TV, But, it was just, like I said, it was a lot of fun. And, I think it showed the fans that maybe don't care for that style or that type. It showed them that it's okay to have that on the show as well, right? And like you said, I mean, I don't know. Everyone has their opinions, and I think the crowds, they're going to get deflated no matter what. It's a lot. Our pay-per-views are, I mean, everything, bam, bam, bam. Great matches, and you need some downtime. But going back to originally, we weren't even going to be the main event of the pre-show, And because in my mind, I thought, okay, if all these people tune in at like 7:15, they can watch the main event, which could be the 4-way with Buddy and Top Flight, Dante and stuff. And it would introduce them to what AEW really is. But the more we started talking and everything, it was like, oh, this has to be the main event. I don't think things are going to be able to follow this right out the gate. And selfishly, I told everyone, like, hey, is it okay? I remember calling Tony, and he was talking to other people, like, hey, do you think it's okay if we go last? Like, I feel like we're going to build this up. I think it has to go last, and we have to bring them down a little bit before we start the pay-per-view. And, some people may not have come back from that match. You know what I mean? Like, because some of them weren't wrestling fans. They were AJ fans, or they were just there to see some kind of spectacle. And, like I said, I was really proud of what we did. I think it worked out for him. I mean, we've used him since, and he's part of the AEW family now, which that was not the pitch. But of course, Tony, after talking to him and realizing what kind of person he was and all that other stuff, it all just worked out for everybody.
No, for sure. You saw an opportunity again that was beneficial to everybody. Also, once again, a little bit for yourself. You saw something there, and it worked. And to get Big Justice involved, the RZA's involved now, like the whole crew's involved, which is insane.
And that was the other thing too. I mean, of course, I had to get something out of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if they were to have said like, "Hey, we want person X to be in it," like at Revolution, it was like, "Well, hey, we still have unfinished business." I was like, "No, you guys, I think you're at another tier now, right? Like, team with Orange and Mark Briss, like, and it all worked out." Also, so I really have to pick my spots.
Yeah. Last 3 questions really quickly, though. Sure. You've never shied away from the story stuff, whether it was the QTV stuff, the stuff you did with Cody, even the stuff you did with AJ, and like being the big Doom and the music videos and everything you did. How important is it to you? And then even the match itself. The match was and I don't know, speaking as a fan here, because I've bumped around a little bit for fun, but I'm not a wrestler whatsoever. But as a fan that's been watching for a really long time, I'm like, pretty straightforward, simple match, nothing too flashy, but you're invested because you're so invested in the characters, the story. You want to see what's gonna happen. Like, you're waiting for the Big Justice run and everything. It was just fun to be watching it. So how important is it to you in your mind, the storytelling aspect and the character aspect of professional wrestling?
So I always say this. I love baseball. I love the Yankees, but I love the Yankees. I can watch a baseball game and I can sit there and I can enjoy it and have fun. But like the Yankees playing the Mets this weekend, when I'm watching the game, every single pitch I'm invested in, right? So if I'm invested in the characters, I'm invested. And I just believe you have to be invested in them. And our fans are fully invested in our characters. Now, if you're trying to show your friend outside to come watch our show and they don't read up on the characters or whatever it is, or whatever the people are going to say, it's going to be a little harder to be invested. So now you're going to be looking for, again, like when I watch a baseball game of 2 teams I don't care about, I want to see home runs. I want to see someone get the ball thrown at their head. You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking for a guy to get ejected from the game. Like, I need something more than just your basic, baseball game. AJ and myself, a basic wrestling match, good, evil, everything looks presentable, right? Nothing is what I would say like insulting the intelligence of the audience. And then you throw a couple little things in here and there, like AJ, I mean, at his age, superplexing off the top rope, and it was like, hey, with a broken foot, hey, you don't have to go to the top. We're going to the top. Okay, we're going to the top.
He's a wrestler.
He's a wrestler, So it's like having that, and again, everyone, when you get your match and you understand that, hey, this is what I have tonight, you can tell your own story. The story doesn't have to start with a video package. It doesn't have to start with, 6 weeks of build. Like, the marquee says wrestling. It's okay to just go out there and wrestle. But it's up to you to be able to understand that you don't have all this buildup. So you have to tell a story within the time that you're given. So, it's what we do. It's literally what we do is we tell stories and they settle them in the ring, right? And sometimes the story starts in the ring. That's the other thing too, right? Sometimes it starts in the ring and you don't get all those other things. So.
No, for sure. And I also, being a Macho Man fan, that you understand the idea of presence and character, I believe. Second to last question, how is it for you balancing being the person that's helping backstage, creative, whatever you're doing backstage, and then also being the wrestler that wants to be on screen? You've talked a lot about not pushing too hard to be on TV, wrestling outside of AEW to kind of get yourself out there. Is there like a mental game for you sometimes where you're like, I need to know this is my role here, but also like you want to pitch in things like what's the balance like for you?
So when it was harder for me before I left. When I came back, we spoke about it, right? And we put it on the table. Hey, this is what I can give you if you come back, and are you okay with that? And I say, I am. I'm at a point now. I can wrestle for other people. This is my job, and it's just like I work at Starbucks. I'm going to go to work at Starbucks on Wednesdays and Saturdays and every other day of the week by fielding phone calls and text messages, but I'm not a wrestler. Now, if the time comes and we need me to wrestle, I'm always here. I have gear. I can always wrestle, but I don't need to be worried about that. I don't need to stress about it. I don't need to worry about, hey, this QTV thing is going to end up being for Powerhouse Hobbs and we got to do this for him and that for that. and you got to worry about writing the show with me and sitting there and you know, formatting it and all these things. Now it's like, hey, I just go to work. I go to work.
Yeah.
I have my my backpack, my laptop is already there. They set it up for me, and it's like, hey, I'm going to go to work that day. I'm not going to have to worry about it. But if you tell me the week before, hey, I do need you to do something on ROH, or if I have an idea that, again, that's a low hanging fruit that it's not going to bother anybody else, and I can get out there and have some fun, great. Like, again, not sure when this is going to air, but tomorrow we'll be in Albuquerque. Yeah. One of the guys that came and trained with me, his name is Manny Lemons. He was in Salt Lake City as well. He pushed a lot of tickets. He's just a guy that has a lot of contacts out there and whatever it was. I wrestled him in between Dynamite and Rampage. I'm probably going to do it tomorrow. I just got a message about it. I was like, oh, man, I didn't even pack gear. So I'll probably wrestle him tomorrow. It won't be televised, but we'll have some fun, and I'll get to go out there in front of a live house and get that fixed. So it's a lot easier for me now, whereas before, you know, it was a lot harder because things were just happening and ideas were coming up for me, and I was going along with them, and hey, I'm okay to do it. But then the more you start to, especially after the Mexico stuff, you start to see that maybe you could do more. So you want to push for more, but again, it's not my show. And, you know, I got to do what I'm asked. So it's much easier now. Like I said, there's not as much stress.
So that break between when your contract ended and you re-signed was a big putting things in perspective for you situation.
I mean, you know, 6 days total, I think it was. But like, you know, obviously I had left before that, but like the contract was up January 1st. I think I had my meeting with Tony on like the 5th or the 6th. So it really was just a matter of like, I just need to figure out what is important, what's realistic, you know, and how to be where I want to be. Right. And at the end of the day, this whole thing that we're doing is my dream, but it's also about money. Right. And it's what is I can still wrestle. I have my own shows that I run. Like I can still wrestle if I want to go wrestle the match before the show. It's like, how much do you want to be on TV? At the end of the day, that was never like my dream, was to be on TV, like a TV wrestler, right? It was never I need to be on TV. No, it was like, I want to be a wrestler. So getting to wrestle and getting paid to wrestle is the greatest thing in the world. So whether it's in front of, you know, TV cameras or not, it doesn't matter to me one bit. I just want to go wrestle once in a while, you know?
Yeah. And it's a one thing, and I'll wrap this up really quickly, is I always try to explain that to people when they're younger and they're like, you know, they got big goals, and I'm like, you can be this ambitious and crazy younger, but I'm like, you know, once you get older, like responsibilities start coming in, and like a lot of these things, as much as it's a dream, also becomes a job. Like you got a mortgage, you might have kids, you got to put through college, you need to pay your bills every month. Like as much as you want something to be one way, you also got to be like, okay, well, I still got to make sure this income is still coming in and I'm making money. And then balance and do both, you know?
like I said earlier, when you asked me about the independence, like I always had a good job. Now I have a really good job that just happens to be in wrestling, and I still get to work the independence,
which is a dream, but it's a job.
Which is the dream, right?
Yeah. Last but not least, I ask everybody this at the end of every interview, and I want to ask you as well, if you were to go back to that little kid that saw the Macho Man baseball commercial where he's walking with the kid, or you saw that Razor Ramon magazine, you feel like you've made your younger self proud. If you talk to that kid, would he be like, damn, we've done some pretty cool stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. So I got a message from one of my relatives the other day, and he was very successful, like one of the most successful in my family, I would say. And they were just saying how proud they were that they get to go to their country club and put me over as somebody that, you know, never gave up and just continued to work hard and didn't take no for an answer. And I always joke back, like humbly, like, well, I just didn't know what else I could do with my life. You know what I mean? And like, try to keep, you know, but at the same time, like it does feel really good to know that, again, like I said, I mean, how many people actually think about when they're little and they decide this is what I want to do, and then they go and do it, and then they can try, and then to actually get to a point of getting to do it, it's just, you know, when you actually step away, you know, you step back and you actually look into it, there's not that many people that could say that they got to do that, you know. And like I said, my aunt is super successful, but she didn't get to do what she actually wanted to do, I guess, is the moral of the story. And it's just one of those things that, like I said, you know, if you don't do it, somebody else is going to. And that's the way I've always looked at it. If I don't try to do this, there's somebody else that's going to do it. So why let them do it? You know what I mean? That doesn't mean I have to hold them back or badmouth them or whatever. But like, just because someone else tells me I can't do it doesn't mean I can't. That's just their opinion, you know? So, and as long as you keep that into perspective and you have your responsibilities taken care of and stuff like that too, I think it's a good mix.
Yeah, if you can find a way to make it work, it's the best. And it's like wrestling just as much as sports or acting and other things. Like there are no guarantees. It doesn't owe you anything. There's no like, you can be the hardest worker and sometimes that might not always pay off. So like it's a lot to be proud of if you've even made it this far and you found ways to do it and make money and make it work for you. So I think that's super cool. Thank you very much. This was fun. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
No, thank you. And hopefully we can chat down the road. This was fun. Everyone check out and follow QT Marshall on social media.
My social game's horrible. It's horrible. I'm like never on, but you can, I just retweet stuff and once in a while I'll go back and forth with a fan.
Yeah, support what he's doing outside of AEW. If you see him wrestling anywhere, support that, show it off, do some stuff, and then tune into AEW. Double or Nothing this weekend. I'm once again not sure exactly when this is going to drop, but if it does drop this week, Double or Nothing this weekend, Saturday.
That's right.
Make sure you guys tune in and check it out. And I appreciate you guys all. Keep doing the thing. We'll see you later.
It's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.